To another episode of What the Fuck Paranormal Chat with Mike the Naked, with the Naked Bigfoot. I am your humble host, Mike the Naked Bigfoot. For those of you who don't know me yet. Oh, real quick. If you hear any extra sound in the background, that would be a very large fan blowing it right now. Because I am fucking burning up hot. I am running hot right now. So don't think I'm being attacked by a swarm of bees or anything. That ain't happening. Okay. As always, before we get to tonight's chat, there's a few things that we need to go over. Good to see you too, Chris. Welcome tonight. Welcome tonight. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Um, the views and opinions that will be expressed by me tonight are solely those of me, myself, and I. I am not here to persuade, dissuade, or cause any irreparable harm to your psyche or to offend any belief system that you may hold. My show is meant to be both informative and entertaining. That's it. Now, if you happen to suddenly get the urge to go out from watching one of my shows and explore this beautifully bizarre, strange, magical world of ours, I ask you to do so both sanely and safely. Do not take any of the risks that your humble host here has taken over the course of his lifetime. The risks I took back in the day. Sorry, I am itching like crazy tonight too. The risks that I've taken back in the day were born out of a sense of immortality and stupidity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have never done a quarter of the shit that I did, and nearly caused myself tons of irreparable physical harm and tons of irreparable spiritual harm. But do I regret the things that I've done? No, not whatsoever. I have learned so much, so very much. Alrighty. Also, damn. If you have any small children in the room, or if you're easily offended by bad and naughty language, profanity in particular, you may want to ask the children to leave the room. Super Horror Show, good to have you, good to have you. You're playing catch up. I'm so sorry. Real quick, Super Horror Show was very kind to have me on his show last week, and he Bigfoot treatment. He had an encounter. Well, not an encounter. He to experience something that some people have had experience with. He had some technical difficulties um, that were not altogether natural, mainly because of me. I didn't do it, but I was the conduit for it, and so I take a little bit of responsibility for it. But I think that Super Horror Show enjoyed the experience personally. um, he had fun. I know he did. And I really felt anytime I go on anyone's show, if they invite me on their show, you have no idea what an honor it is for me to be on another person's show. Um, that they would give away their precious time to have me on their show, talking um, about anything. And I really do appreciate that for anybody who has me on the show, whether it's Truth About Beer Guys, Super Horror Show, the Bald and Bonkers team, Drew, Drew's Paranormal Adventures. Uh, Anybody who has me on, I always consider it a great honor, and love you all for that. Love you all, love you all, love you all. Alrighty, where was I? Before I got all sentimental and drooly there for a moment. If you haven't noticed, I've got a little bit more energy than normal too, so it's gonna be one of those shows. So buckle in, buckaroo. It's gonna be fun tonight. Um, back to the cussing. Um, That's one of the reasons why I have the show at 9 o'clock at night, East Coast time, because usually small children are still not awake. Kids are not around their computers watching me. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're too kind, Chris. Too kind. Way too kind. But if you do not wish to expose them to naughty words, please have them leave the room or wear headphones where you can hear me solely. If you personally cannot take naughty words, then I do ask that I would love to have you as a member of my audience, but there's certain things about my nature I can't change. Now, I do try to catch myself, but the F-bomb does come out of my mouth on occasionally. Shit, fuck, damn, cock, whore, all those words come out of my mouth. Sometimes without me catching myself. So I do try to edit myself, guys. I don't do it gratuitously. So, all right. Now we also play a drinking game on my show, which a lot of people are aware of. But if there's anybody new that tunes in, because I have noticed that I've been picking up some new subscribers. So I want to thank all the new subscribers for coming on and joining join Team Naked. That's what I'm going to call it, Team Naked. And watching my shows. Love you long time. Y'all are awesome. But for all you newbies out there who will be watching, we do play a drinking game. Every time you hear me say some variation of the phrase, but that's a story for another time, or that's a story for another day, please take a sip of your adult beverage. If you do not consume adult beverages, please take a sip of your water, tea, or beverage of choice. Not encourage people to drink and drive, but I do guarantee you that, depending on the episode, you will more than likely be drunk off your ass by the time the episode's over with. So do not go out driving. Be someplace that you can go to sleep and rest and sleep it off at. Alrighty, let me think real quick. Is there any other bit of news that I can go over in the paranormal world? Oh, just real quick. I'm not going to do a whole show on it, but let me mention I might do a show on it. Because you know the blood moon that we had that lasted for a certain amount of time. The night of that blood moon over this past weekend, there was some crazy howling in our woods. Not your typical Bigfoot howling. We're quite aware of the growling and grunting and howling of those hairy bastards that live on our mountain. This was something different. Something was making a lot of noise on. But I'll keep you updated and I'll do a show on it soon too. So, alrighty, on with tonight's topic. Okay, hoodoo and root working of the root workers of the South. A lot of people are more familiar with the term hoodoo, which is not to be confused with the word voodoo or the religion of voodoo at all. So I just want to dismiss that right away and get that out of the way. It is not the same thing. It is not a mispronunciation of voodoo or voodoo whatsoever. It isn't, period. And you'll understand why as I talk tonight. Root working and root workers are root workers and who people are very, very similar but very different at the same time, as I'll describe it tonight. But let me do a quick explanation of hoodoo to everybody before I go into any stories or detail tonight. Let's talk about hoodoo for a bit. Um, Hoodoo has its original roots. Um, uh, well, the pillars of hoodoo can be found in the Congo areas, the centermost areas of Africa. Um, it had its uh, hoodoo as it's practiced in the South in the United States. Um, traveled quite a ways to get here. It started, of course, during that time, in the Congo area of Africa, through the slave trade. The faith was brought out in the Caribbean islands, um, parts of Cuba, Puerto Rico, which, by the way, gave rise to Santeria, which I'm probably going to have to do a show on that soon enough to talk about Santeria. Um, Now that's a troublesome faith right there. It is a true faith, and it's very, very troublesome. But that's going to definitely have to be a story for another time, because that's going to eat up a lot of time to talk about Santeria tonight. Hoodoo by itself is going to eat up a lot of time tonight, so I don't want to get off subject too much. uh, it found its way, of course, up into Haiti and Republica Dominicana, the Dominican Republic. And during the various revolutions that happened pre and post slavery, um, it was called, and most of the faiths that came out of these areas, they migrated their way into Georgia, specifically Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Uh, the practice of hoodoo. But like I said, it mostly settled, and the bulk of it settled in Georgia. Now, there's something that if anybody looks it up or wants to do more research about it, that during these times of, right before the end of slavery and right before the end of slavery and right after the end of slavery, um, it's what we call, both in all of these African or near African based religions, it's called the Great Migration, uh, where they all found their way to the southern coasts of the United States. All these faiths did, and settled in these areas, and in some cases, like hoodoo. Now, Voodoo did not spread deep into the United States. But hoodoo did. It spread its way much further into the interior of the United States. Um, like I said, by way of coastal Georgia, it worked its way up into the Appalachian Mountains, and then spread itself into a variation of it, spread itself into Tennessee and Kentucky, um, into the hills and mountains of Tennessee and Kentucky, and North and South Carolina as well. You can find some of it in the northern bits of Florida as well as the Appalachia portions of West Virginia and Virginia. And believe it or not, Ohio. Well, not Ohio. I don't want to get into that. That would be less interesting to talk about Ohio tonight. Um, but what is hoodoo? Like I said, where it came from, but what is it? Hoodoo is a very, and you have to understand, I'm not trying to seek enemies in the hoodoo community, but hoodoo is a primitive form it's a primitive practiced form of aspects of the voodoo religion. There are some who would argue with me and say that hoodoo is a religion by itself, and that they refer to it as a religion and they practice it as a religion. Um, and I can understand why they want to argue about that, because hoodoo, at its think of it this way: it's about 55% spiritualism and about 45% Christianity. They have a lot more aspects of Christianity in hoodoo than what they had and what voodoo has. Voodoo has bits and pieces of Catholicism worked into it that it adopted over the centuries. But hoodoo took it to the next level. They adopted a lot of aspects. We're not talking about Catholicism. We're talking about straight up Christianity. We're talking about Jesus de Christos, Jesus Christ, the Virgin Mary, the whole 9 yards. Can be found in the practice of hoodoo. And notice I said the practice and not the religion of hoodoo. And this is where I typically get in trouble with practitioners about with hoodoo. They claim it's a religion, but they truly have no formal set of governances set up to practice the faith with. There are certain rituals which are endemic to hoodoo, which any practitioner of hoodoo knows. They have no rules or governances about how their faith is passed along. Now they do a bit of ancestor worship, which can be found in, which is one of the foundations of voodoo. But they only pay respect to the ancestors when they're asking favors of the ancestors. It's not something that they would normally go through and light candles with and show reverence to the ancestors. They would only light the candle to the ancestor when they had questions or if they were seeking guidance from the ancestors. I know it's an odd distinction, but when it comes to matters of the faith, to us, it's a very yawning distinction gap between the two. What do they believe? What are their practices in hoodoo? Okay. This is going to get me in trouble too. Hoodoo is the modern. I'm talking about the. Well, let me start about what the traditional hoodoo, what it is. A traditional hoodoo worker is typically female. Very few men. Practice it. I have met male hoodoo workers. I have met many, but I've also met many men who weren't workers but were members of a hoodoo congregation. But I'm going to explain what that is a little bit later, because that's a completely different animal. Yeah, this is going to definitely get me in trouble. What I'm to say. Hoodoo workers are try to find the right word, the right phrase for this. They don't pray. They don't. Again, they don't have a set rules when it comes to prayer. They mostly conduct rituals, both for hey, Heavy Metal Bill Club, welcome, welcome, welcome. They're ritual workers. Let me put it that way. They're ritual workers. But what kind of ritual workers are they? Now, hoodoo, when it came to the United States, And when it was in the Caribbean, and in Haiti and Cuba and places like that, when it was settled in those places, Dominican Republic when it settled in those places, Hoodoo adopted a lot of the native um, religions and spirituality, both here in the United States as well with the Native Americans, mostly found in and around Georgia, Savannah, um, Georgia, places like that. A lot of hoodoo workers learned from the natives of wherever they were at, whether it be America or again in the Caribbean islands. They learned the practice of herbalism, um, and what is known as botanical spirituality, using uh, nature, herbs, trees, so forth, plants, um, in which to they use the spirits that reside in these items to do what's called root working. Again, I'm going to get into what a root worker is later, because a root worker is something that's a bit different from a hoodoo person. It's called a root working. Um, Now, what is, herbal spiritualism, and botanical spiritualism? It's when they're doing invocations to the natural spirits around them, or they're working on healing someone um, spiritually. They will use items from nature in which to do it. Now, one of the more interesting things about hoodoo, which a lot of people confuse with voodoo in this aspect, is when it comes to providing offerings um, and conducting rituals for people and for themselves. Not only do they do this botanical spiritualism, but they also sacrifice animals. There's not a single major ritual involved in hoodoo that does not involve, well, it's not even a major ritual, even minor rituals. There's not a single one that doesn't involve bloodletting. Um, it's uh, please understand it when I phrase it this way. It's a very bloody practice. Hoodoo is a very, very bloody and blood involved practice. Because within hoodoo, blood, of course, has its own life in it. It has the life, the blood is the life of that animal. And they take that life and the energy from that life to fuel their rituals that they do. And that's one of the, hoodoo is what gave voodoo a bad name when it came to bloodletting. Voodoo is not as trust me when I say this, and you've heard me say in the past about sacrifices that I've done, that they can be bloody. Um, Trust me when I say hoodoo is a fuck ton more bloodier than the voodoo religion. Fuck ton more bloodier. Much, much, much more bloodier. Now let's talk really quickly. I know I'm trying not to be too scatterbrained tonight. I got that crazy energy going on. So if you need me to reel something in or explain something, please make a comment in the chat, guys, and I'll try to reel it in and explain it a little bit better. Alrighty. What kind of rituals do they do? Okay. What a hoodoo worker does. Like I said before, it's not a formal religious practice. Hoodoo practitioners, they are the capitalists of the faiths. They don't do anything for free. Hoodoo workers don't. Back in the day, it used to not revolve around money. You could bring over food, you could bring over animals, you could bring over all kinds of things to a hoodoo worker to exchange for their services. Um, but in modern days, it's cold hard cash. They want to get paid up front before they do anything for you, and they're not cheap. Everything has a price. Which, by the way, that's another difference between hoodoo and voodoo. Uh, we do things not for Bakor, and the Mambo typically does not do things for money, although donations are accepted. Um, don't do things for money. We do it for the betterment of people and trying to do something good for people. Uh, which is another difference with the hoodoo. They don't care. They do good or bad. They swing both ways when it comes to doing. God, the lighting in here sucks balls. People are cheap. Dude, that was funny as shit. That's what I was just. That's what I was just saying. Sam, is that um, nowadays the hoodoo practitioners do things for cold hard cash. They don't do things for. You can't bring them over a bushel of berries or something, or a bushel of nuts, and expect expect their services. They want money. A hoodoo practitioner wants money. They want money. Um, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there's a difference, people. They want money. Um, and they'll do anything for you. They can call up the spirits. And something that hoodoo workers are really, really good at is divination. They're able to they can divine. They are really a good hoodoo worker um, through their practice and their work with the energies around them. Um, they can see into the future. They can see probabilities very easily. Um, something that a practitioner of voodoo that we do not do that. We do not do what is called tempting of fate. But the hoodoo practitioners have absolutely no qualms about tempting fate. They will use their services to tell a little bit of some of what people should expect in their future. And typically it's not vague at all. It's pretty fucking accurate too. I'm saying hoodoo workers are really, really good at it. Fascinating. But usually when you want that kind of knowledge, you pay out your nose for that kind of knowledge. Um, and the knowledge could be good or bad. They make no apologies for it. But I've seen a number of people leave out of the homes of hoodoo workers in tears after being told their immediate future, what is coming into their life. Um, it's generally not good. It's generally not good at all. Which I've always found fascinating about them. Completely fascinating. Now, they are also famous for their curses as well. Now, they don't call them curses. Just like voodoo, we don't call them curses at all. Everybody well knows. Voodoo practitioners usually, they call it fixes. They call it fixing when they fix someone. um, they're really, really good at fixing people. They don't receive any negative kickbacks for curses. Now, we're not talking the kind of curses that a hoodoo practitioner can do curses for themselves if they have felt slighted or offended by somebody. But mostly they do curses for people who come to them seeking revenge for a wrong that's been done to them. They come to the hoodoo practitioner um, to be made whole again and to punish um, someone or a family. And their curses, now this is where, you know, people, when they think of voodoo, this is what they think of, but it's actually hoodoo that does this. Their curses are blood curses. Um, their curses involve body parts. They are pieces of parts, pieces of hair, skin, nails, both of the person seeking the curse and of the person or family that is to be cursed. Um, and it always involves bloodletting of some sort from that person that's coming and seeking the curse. And this is the part where I have to pause and say, it's because of this particular practice. Um, most Hungan and most Mambo, for that matter, um, let bygones be bygones. They live and let die. They, I am, and I let some of my own, you know, values seep into this. But I find that practice of blood curses offensive and just terrible and destructive and evil. You don't ever hear me use the E word very often, but blood curses are fucking evil. They are the epitome of evil. I do not get along with hoodoo people. I do not get along with hoodoo practitioners. It's nothing about the person in general, it's about what they practice. I find it distasteful and harmful to the spiritual world and the spiritual community at large. There. Sorry, I had to get that out. That's been bubbling in my head ever since I decided to talk about this topic, how I was going to approach this. They nauseate me, personally. Not saying that I've been to many hoodoo ceremonies. I've been to a few of them, well, many hoodoo ceremonies, um, as an observer, not as somebody going to go seek anything. Um, and I had to keep the look of disdain off of my face the entire time it was going on. I am. This is the only time you'll ever hear me say that. It's one of the few instances that I am not open-minded about it. Um, but I think that's because of my teacher, Papa Thomas. He taught me better. I think it's because of his teachings why I find what they do with blood just absolutely abhorrent. It's an anathema to me. Okay, let me get off my soapbox. And that's a damn good question. I was going to talk about that a little bit later. There's a difference between a priest and a practitioner. A hoodoo priest is something that is a modern invention, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm trying to work my way from the traditional things, but no, thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad you did bring it up, because if you've noticed, I've been avoiding the word priest and using the word practitioner a lot tonight. Because it's not as formal as a faith as one might think. They have tried to codify it into a faith recently in the last few decades, but it's something else now. It started off as something different. Um, Probably, Sam. We'd have an interesting discussion over tea, Sam. Very interesting discussion. Um, that's a story for another day. Okay, let's go back to their rituals and blood curses. Um, Hoodoo practitioners, when a blood curse doesn't involve, they're usually what they're doing is they're sicking spiritual entities on people when they do it. Um, Irish breakfast. Uh, what a hoodoo practitioner is doing is that they're sicking a spiritual entity on a person or a family, to cause them harm. Now, I'm saying spiritual entity because these things take many forms. Um, when you view them through a mortal eye, they have many forms. They can take a form of another person. They can take the form of it as an element of nature, as an elemental, as a gust of wind or water or fire, or a rock. They could appear as an animal, a snake, a deer, a wolf, these spiritual entities, um, to cause harm in this family. Now, I have actually paid witness, and I actually had to help remove a hoodoo blood curse off of a family. They were being plagued, and this family. And now I'm not talking about immediate family like a family. We're talking about a generational curse. Usually, when a hoodoo practitioner works on something, it doesn't end when it's a blood curse. It doesn't end with that one person. It continues on for generations and generations until the curse is broken and or lifted by the hoodoo practitioner and or their descendants. Just putting that out there. That's why I've always told people it's not wise to piss them off because they will make they will make your children, their grandchildren, their great grandchildren, they will make them pay, um, for generations. They're not fun people to piss off whatsoever, especially if you don't have any way of making it go. This particular family had been cursed. They were descendants of slave owners, outside of Savannah, Georgia. As you heard me talking about Savannah earlier, I got to meet and I got to work with them, and I helped them lift the curse. And they had a hoodoo practitioner, and that was a slave that was in there that was one of their ancestors' slaves. And when they were freed, the family's ancestors, instead of what a lot of plantations and farms happened at, is that instead of just letting them leave peacefully, um, they very resentfully beat and killed a lot of their slaves. And then there was quite a few that were able to get away. And one of them was a hoodoo woman that who was a practitioner, of course, who cursed this family. And the spiritual entity that they attached to this family through this blood curse. Oh, it was nasty. Absolutely nasty. It would appear as a pack of dogs on the property that would follow these family members around. And when this pack of dogs would always appear at night, would always terrorize any family member that was caught alone by themselves. They would chase them back into their house or back into the woods, back out of the woods. They were always being pursued by these dogs, but these dogs just didn't terrify these black dogs that would appear. Talk about black dogs one day, because it has some linkage to what I'm talking about now, but that's a story for another day. These dogs brought with them, when they began to manifest and to appear in the family, they would always bring disease with them when they did it. When they began to appear on your property, and hunt and haunt you throughout your daily life, throughout your family's life, they brought disease to that family. We're talking about cancers, all sorts of cancers, madness, diseases of the brain, madness, you name it. No member of this family would ever live past the age of 60. They died before they hit the age of 60. No member of this family ever had. And they actually had to prove that to me. They actually took me to the local family grave sites and showed me, said, see, nobody lives past 60 in this family. They die from some horrible malady that afflicts them. That would happen maybe 1 in a million chance of them ever contracting it. The family members would get it. But it would always coincide with the appearance of these black dogs that would haunt and terrorize the family. Um, don't get too drunk tonight, people. We have a lot more to talk about. It took a lot. It took me. It took me almost 3 weeks to exercise, exercise to detach these spirits, the spiritual entity, from this family, to remove them from this family. Um, and I ended up what I ended up doing was this corporation, which was spreading the energies of the entity into so many directions that it would never be able to pull itself back together again and pull off anything meaningful um, to this family ever again. Trust me, it was exhausting. It took a lot out of me. I was sick for a month afterwards. It took a lot of my own life, my own energy, but hey, it's what I do. I fucking help people. Usually end up fucking myself up in the process, but I'll always go out of the way to try to help people when they're dealing with shit like this. Um, and it was quite a challenge as well, because I had to find where some of these slaves were buried at, the descendants were buried at. Long story short, I had to dig up body part, well, bones, and I had to dig up. Oh God, it was nasty. Dealing with hoodoo curses is just fucking nasty business. You're dealing with a lot of body parts. It's really nasty. Okay. Nope. I'm glad you asked that about them attaching to me. They recognized what I was doing. These things recognized what I was doing. It was recognizing what I was doing. Um, and unlike a lot of things in the spiritual world, these spirits at hoodoo practitioners, these spiritual entities that they use, and their ritual fixings of people, um, they don't have names. Um, they are spirits in need of a purpose, and a hoodoo practitioner pays their price, which is usually involves blood, is their price for what they do. And they use the blood of whatever they're attached to, the energy from, I'm saying blood in quotation marks, um, to do what they have to do once they leave the place that the practitioner summoned them from. Okay, now I'm not saying that hoodoo practitioners do all bad. They do a lot of good too. Like I said, they do a lot of their rites involve healing of people, both spiritually and physically. Like I said, they're very skilled herbalists, very good at medicinal, natural medicinal cures. They're absolutely fascinating and fun. Fun. I mean, I respect that part of what they do a great deal. Um, but they do one thing that I've always found kind of sketchy as well, is that they can remove negative energy. I hate using that phrase. It's so fucking hokey. They call it removing evil from someone, and they seal it away in a jar or container when the process of removing evil from someone, removing bad karma, bad evil, bad energy, they can remove it from them. But instead of just releasing it back into the wild, they seal it away, usually in jars. It can be as simple as a mayonnaise jar. It can be as complicated as an earthenware jar that's sealed. And they have a location that they go and they bury these jars that are filled with this negative energy or this evil. They bury these jars in that location. And every member from, every descendant of that practitioner who continues to practice, they're given knowledge of where to go bury this evil at. And I've been to locations that contain this buried evil that they put it at. I have puked my guts out standing on the ground where all this evil is buried in, or over the decades and centuries that hoodoo practitioners over time have gone and buried this evil into the ground. The ground was in effect cursed. It's never something you want to build on. It's never something you want to dig into. Think Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist movie. Think of that times 10. If you'd ever decide to build a house on a location where the hoodoo practitioner has buried a lot of evil in. Now, I was shown one of these jars that contained an evil that had been buried yet, and they wouldn't let me touch it because I wanted to. I'm a hands-on person. I want to touch it. But they held it up to a candle so I could look at it, and it looked like an empty jar at first, and it was an old mason jar with a flip lid on it. Um, and for the briefest moments when they held up that jar in front of the candle, I saw a snake. It was a red and black snake coiled up inside of the jar, and it was looking out of the jar right at me, and it had the brightest green eyes as it was looking at me. And the practitioner must have seen the look on my face because they immediately sat the jar away where I couldn't see it anymore. And like I said, for the briefest moment, I saw that snake. That it was something evil that was meant that my spiritual awareness and my mind was showing me what it looked like inside of that jar. I have to say it scared the fuck out of me a little bit when I saw that. But I have to respect um, that aspect of their practice a great deal. It's removing the evil from people. I do not respect how they dispose of it. I think that's careless. But that is, again, that's me. That's not me speaking as a Hungan priest. That is me speaking as Mike. That I don't like the way they dispose of it whatsoever. Okay, I know I've stuck on hoodoo for a while. Let me talk really quick. What time is it? Yeah, we got some time. Um, about a root worker. A root worker is generally um, root workers are generally found in the south and very rural, swampy, and also in the mountains as well. My first encounters with root workers. Now, root workers are descendants, or is another evolution, a more primitive evolution. Those are two words that should probably never go together, but it makes sense if you ever met a root worker. Um, Again, most root workers are female. They can be found throughout the Appalachians. They can be found throughout the wilder parts of Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and West Virginia. Uh, Most people don't refer to them as root workers. They refer to them as mountain witches or witches in general. Uh, they talk about them. Witch woman in the woods. They are very close um, to nature and to the natural world. They're also skilled herbalists as well. But they're known for their natural abilities, their natural magics, by using the natural world to help heal people, again, both spiritually and physically, as well as using the spirit found within the natural world This is a word I don't like to use, but I'll use it. If anybody who knows how the most natural spirits are, nature spirits are, they are neither good nor evil. It depends on how they're used and how they're approached, and what you give them, they give back. If you give them evil, they will give evil back to you. If you wish for them to do evil, they will do evil. If you wish for them to do good, they will do good. And it's all based, when it comes to root workers, it's all based on the nature of the root worker. Not all root workers are Miss Mary Sunshines. When you hear them talking about placing the root upon someone, that is their form of a curse. But it's not a blood curse. They don't ask for bits and pieces of people and blood. And most root workers do not do ritual sacrifices. They don't do ritual bloodlettings. They use the natural magics found in everyday and outdoor and natural objects like trees, the rivers, streams, bark, various herbs. They use the inherent magics found within that. Um, like if somebody has done them wrong, they might make someone's house burn down by invoking one of the spirits of fire in the natural world, um, to engulf their home. Now, they don't typically hold grudges against entire families for generations upon generations. Usually, when the object of their ire has been dealt with, they're done with it. They're done with it. Um, Usually, women approach root workers, especially when it comes to unfaithful husbands. Root workers are good at either bringing around unfaithful husbands to make them faithful again by hook or by crook, depending on what they've done to this family. But women usually come to root workers if they're trying to have a child and are not able to have a child by natural means. Now, this is something else that's found in hoodoo practitioners too that can do this, but mostly in the mountains. In my experience, I've known a few root workers. They can make an infertile woman fertile. Again, by using the natural world around them, the spirits of this natural world, to make a barren woman fertile again. And it's usually, uh, they usually don't have more than 2 or 3 kids. You have to remember, in most mountain families, 2 or 3 kids is nothing. Usually the families can go upwards to 12 to 15. They breed a lot. They make a lot of children. But that's a story for another day. Usually the children that are born um, from a root worker making their mother fertile again are gifted. They have unnatural ways about them. They're more in touch with the spiritual world than your typical person that are born in the woods. Because for them to be born, their mother had to encounter uh, the spiritual world for them to be born. And it has touched these children. And these children can go on to be psychic mediums, you name it. They start bloodlines up. Like you've heard me talk about psychic mediums in the past, that usually psychic mediums, are part of a very rich and powerful bloodline that can trace back their bloodline for generations upon generations. A lot of these psychics and mediums that come out of the mountains were the children born from infertile parents, from an infertile woman that had to have the natural magics of the world to have them to give birth to. Um, I know I'm glossing over a lot of this tonight. There's so much more. I need to do a part 2 to the show because there's so much more that we can talk about tonight concerning this. But I hope upon hope, I was able to explain this. No, they are not cursed. These children that are born this way are not cursed. I'll use the word that my grandmother and great grandmother used. They're touched. They've been touched. Um, when you've been touched, because apparently I was one of those children that was touched too. I was part of the bloodline that was touched back in the day. It is not a curse when you touch them. Now, some people that are descendants, where they've had family members who were touched, and they're descendants of those family members that were touched, um, they can think of their gifts as curses. They can't escape them. You've heard me talk in the past that some of them are diagnosed as being schizophrenic. Um, some of them commit suicide, so on and so forth. But a touched bloodline is a strong and powerful bloodline, um, spiritually speaking. Oh, well, thank you. Y'all are awesome tonight. Well, guys, let me wrap it up really quick. Like I said, I want to do a part two of the show. There's so much more I can talk about, and I know I got off on some odd subjects and put a little bit of too much of myself in this, but let me just wrap it up by saying, let me say this really quick about modern hoodoo priests. There, I finally said the word hoodoo priests. Um, the modern hoodoo priestess uh, is a showman, is a snake oil salesman. And there's a lot of them, especially in the Gullah Island regions. You guys can look it up, the Gullah Island regions, where hoodoo priestesses practice their form of Christianity that's mired in traditional hoodoo beliefs. But they do it for money and they do it for publicity. They don't do it um, as a part of their tradition. They're full of shit. And they disgust me. I've met quite a few of them. They absolutely disgust me. And again, they're snake oil salesmen. And all they do is put on a show. They don't honor any spirit, whether it's that of an ancestor or that of nature whatsoever. They do it for their own glorification, which I find deeply disturbing and deeply disgusted. And I'm deeply disgusted by it. Okay, I got that out. Okay, guys, it's that magic time again. Time has run out for us again. I want to thank everybody for coming out and listening. I really love you, really appreciate you. Smash that like button if you like what you see. If you dislike it, that's okay. You're not going to offend me at all. Please leave a comment in the comment section if you wish to. You can put a little, constructive criticism. I take everything to heart, and I usually will adapt my show to meet the expectations of my audience. Love you all for coming on tonight. If you've been playing along with our drinking game, do not drink and drive whatsoever. That would be foolish. You can find me on Twitter under Voodoo Man 3. Voodoo Man, yeah, 3. I do follow back. Please like and share. Please go through. I have many more videos in the past, and I have many more coming up. So hopefully I'll have plenty of stuff for you guys to enjoy in the future. And I know I've got plenty of stuff already archived for you to enjoy in the past. Love you all, guys. I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic night. Had a lot of fun with you. And that goes both for the people who are on tonight live and for the people who are going to watch the recorded broadcast later. Have an awesome night, guys. Thank you for joining What the Fuck Paranormal with the Naked Bigfoot. Until we see each other again.